Hey everyone, I'm Tyler Metcalf, and I watch the film so you don't have to. On this video, we're going to take a look at Tre Johnson's passing. The freshman shooting guard from the University of Texas is widely considered one of the elite scorers in the 2025 NBA draft, but I think his passing gives him way more versatility and upside than he gets credit for. Welcome to Film School. Let's dive in. All right, at the open here, I just kind of want to start with a deluge of Tre Johnson playmaking clips just so you can kind of get a sense of how he sets up his teammates, how he uses his scoring gravity to create for others, the different ways that he gets downhill, changes angles, and how many opportunities he has here that he creates for other teammates that don't get converted into made buckets. Now, Tre Johnson's playmaking numbers aren't outlandish. And big caveat here, none of this is to suggest that Tre Johnson is going to grow into a primary creator or even a point guard. Obviously you never want to put a limit on what a player can grow into one day, but the point of this video and this exercise is to more so highlight that he's nowhere close to being the black hole of a passer as so many people tend to make him out to be. On the season, Tre Johnson ranked second on the Longhorns in both assist rate and total assists. Not bad. His assist rate of 16.5 is pretty average. His turnover rate of 11.3 is very good. So the raw numbers, they're not great. They don't scream primary creator, but what they scream is that he's a shooting guard, and that's kind of all he is. Now, the big thing with playmaking numbers and assist numbers is longtime listeners will know to get an assist, the other guy has to make the shot. That just didn't happen this year with Texas. As a team, when you take out Tre Johnson's numbers, they shot 47% from the floor overall and just 34% from three. Not great, Bob. When you look at the players who took more than 23-point attempts on the season, very low bar in terms of volume. Only one shot over 36%, and he was at 36.4%. That's brutal. So what that tells us is that Tre Johnson in Texas had horrible spacing to deal with, that defenses were able to kind of just regularly collapse on them, but also that a lot of these looks, as we can see throughout this kind of montage here, a lot of these looks that Tre Johnson is creating just don't get converted. Now that happens sometimes. With Texas, it seemed to happen a lot. It's really brutal. Again, not to suggest that Tre Johnson's going to be a point guard or a primary creator or anything like that, but in an offense where he's allowed to, that has actual NBA spacing, that has NBA level scorers, and he can continue to leverage his scoring gravity and utilize this passing accuracy and playmaking vision that he showed all year, his offense is going to look way, way, way more versatile than it did at Texas this last year, and it'll be a lot of fun. All right, let's dive into some of these specifics in Tre Johnson's playmaking and kind of how he was able to utilize his scoring gravity and passing accuracy to create for teammates. All right, we'll dive into some of the kind of the nuances with Tre's uh, drive and kick game, his interior passing game, and we'll focus on those kind of individual examples. But I wanted to start out with this one, which kind of blends it all together and is one of my more favorite kind of highlights of his from the entire season. And it's a great kind of example of his playmaking versatility and how he can create for others in more of that off-ball role. So this play starts with him just making a simple Iverson cut across the court, gets it on the left wing to kind of set up this empty corner pick and roll. Kaluma's kind of posting up, doesn't really like it. Now he's out by the 3-point line. Might as well just set the pick and roll. And here Johnson gets the switch onto Alex Caravan. From here, nice little kind of quick crossover. And we see, I love how quick and sharp this crossover is by Johnson and how he just explodes out of it. Just pop, and he's gone. And he does such a good job of working the baseline, and we'll see that we saw it throughout that montage to open, and we'll see it in a handful more of clips coming up here, but explodes out of this crossover, and now Caravan does a good job of kind of staying attached to his hip, but Johnson has, a layup here. If the help rotation doesn't come, it does. Johnson reads it. He reads solo ball is the other kind of weak side defender here, and he's up closer to the free throw line, which means Shedrick is wide open in the corner. Johnson does a good job changing that release angle to avoid the outstretched hand of the help defender, delivers a perfect bounce pass, and Texas swings. And that kind of hockey assist here sets up a wide open three. From here, shot goes up. Johnson stays in the play. He keeps lurking in the dunker spot, puts himself in position to make a play, tips it out, keeps the ball alive for his teammate. As they secure this offensive rebound, now he's going to go relocate back out to the corner. Just really sound kind of shooting guard instincts, and a little shot fake here is going to get the scramble defense to commit even more. High hand gets the defender out of position, gets him out of his stance here. Now with Caravan retreating to pick up his man to get back in position and match up, Tre Johnson can now yet again attack baseline. Now that his primary defender's out of position, out of that defensive stance, he attacks down. Since Caravan's back is to the ball, he can't really process quick enough that he just needs to reposition himself and cut off that drive right away and hope McNeely or Terrace Reed here collapses down onto Kaluma. Instead, Caravan continues to recover over to Kaluma, which means Terrace Reed now has to collapse down. As he does that, Johnson does a great job. He completely torches his primary defender here, and now he attracts the rotation from both Reed and Caravan. So he has now attracted the attention of three separate defenders. Does a great job of elevating like he's going for the shot, gets both defenders to commit to blocking that shot, and then changes the release point. He knows that McNeely is cutting over towards the middle here to take away the cutter. He knows that his primary defender is out of the picture, and both weak side defenders are obviously right in his face, which means Kaluma is wide open on the opposite block, changes that release angle, dumps it off to him for the wide open dunk. Now I want to focus on Johnson's interior passing and how well he utilizes his strength, his footwork, his shifty creativeness, and most specifically his scoring gravity to create for others. The change of angles, getting defenders off their feet, forcing help rotations, finding these open gaps in the perimeter or in the interior defense, working that baseline to create really, really quality looks for his teammates and constantly keeping his head on a swivel. On this first one, Johnson kind of gets a switch here. Shedrick just ghost screens the pick and roll, A&M switches, and Johnson has the bigger, stronger defender on him, but he's not deterred. Johnson doesn't have a ton of explosiveness, so he can't really turn the corner here. So what he does instead is lowers his shoulder. Defender tries to sell it. Great job. Refs don't bite. Johnson keeps that dribble alive. And from here, he's kind of caught in no man's land because the contact threw off his balance a little bit. But since he has his head up, he's off his feet. He knows he has to get rid of it. And he spots that the help defender is here in no man's land. That Shedrick is in the dunker spot, completely wide open. And Johnson knows that given his scoring reputation, that the defender is going to be drawn towards Johnson taking a shot. As he's in the air here, it's just second nature for this defender to think that Johnson's going to put up a shot. He's in the air. He's in a vulnerable position. Obviously, you're going to commit here. Johnson knows that. He adjusts, shovels it to Shedrick. Great job of improvising here on the fly. Absorbs the contact. Isn't thrown off. Keeps his composure. Gets the help defender to commit. Throws in a bit of flair with the no look. and sets up the dunk. On this one, we see how Johnson's off ball scoring gravity and off ball creation, as more of that traditional shooting guard and secondary creator, can yet again create looks for teammates on the interior. Runs off the pin down, runs off the DHO, and now he's just in isolation and he's just going to work with the handle. Some really fun hesitation stuff here, keeps Billy Richmond dancing, trying to keep up with him. Crosses over, and that little hezzy right there, it's subtle, but it's enough. He just sinks down there to simulate like he's going to step back, which gets Richmond to pause just for that second. And instead of stepping back, Johnson explodes into the space. Richmond is stuck trying to play catch up now. It's tough for Richmond because Johnson's already gone. He's already beaten him. He's beaten the gap help here. He knows that DJ Wagner can't fully commit because you don't help off of strong side corner shooters, which means he's just waiting for the weak side rotation from the help rim protector here. Once Adu gets there, Johnson yet again does a great job of staying composed, knowing where the rotation is coming from, countering that, changing that release angle, dumps it off to his teammate. Can't get the bucket, but they get the foul. Really, really good job of Johnson using that shiftiness and that scoring gravity to draw rotations and then funnel the ball right back into the spaces that the defender just vacated. On this one, really good job of finding the open gap in the defense here. Defenders focused on the ball, defenders focused on the ball, and Tre Johnson's defender here is focused on the ball, which means there's all of this space wide open in the middle of the floor. Johnson flashes to it. His defender is now completely out of the picture and is 100% in catch-up mode. As Johnson dribbles or continues to keep his dribble alive and his momentum carries him towards the corner here, Texas A&M has to force a switch here, and some really good ball handling here. We saw how Johnson exploded out of that crossover a few clips ago. This is really similar, just with that in and out move. Lulls his defender to sleep, gets a little upright, and then hits him with that nasty in and out. Sends Coleman the wrong way. And now Tre is attacking baseline yet again, working that baseline, drawing multiple defenders. And since he's working that baseline so effectively and drawing multiple defenders to that space, he knows that he's going to open up areas for teammates. If they're willing to cut into him, he knows that he's going to be able to find them. Johnson is just looking at his teammates here on the weak side, along with number one, and who's committing to who and who's occupying the space. Johnson stares down Shedrick here on the block, waits for his teammate to relocate. As he cuts into the space, Johnson feeds him perfectly in stride, goes up, misses the floater. Unfortunate, but good look. Kind of tough. Two here does a good job of rotating down, but generally process in terms of using that scoring gravity to draw the defenders, find the open teammate. This should be a bucket, but they can't convert. And then finally, early offense here. Sorry about that. Early offense here. Johnson is pushing and tries to drive baseline. Can't fully turn the corner, but again, he's getting to the baseline, drawing that second defender. So now he's, again, creating a mismatch on the weak side. So they have a corner shooter, man on the block, and man above the break. And all he's doing is reading these two defenders. He knows that he has his primary defender engaged. He knows that Malik Dia here on the elbow isn't going to fully leave Shedrick. And he has, I believe that's Matthew Morrell, rotating down to the baseline here. So he knows that he has a 3-on-2 advantage, and he's just reading these two weak side defenders. As Tre stares down the corner, he sends both of these help defenders towards the corner, and his teammate here does a great job of recognizing eyes are on the ball, and all of this, and the lane is completely unoccupied. By the time that this defender recognizes that he's kind of been looked off of and drawn into that space, it's too late. Johnson does a fantastic job of hanging on to it until the last second, putting enough pace on it so it gets there, gets to his teammate before the defender can make the rotation, and sets up what should have been an easy 2 points. But the way that Johnson consistently probes the defense, uses that shifty ball handling, and explodes out of crossovers and in and out dribbles, and really works the baseline to draw defenders, and then sets up his teammates in situations and in spaces that defenders just vacated, is really, really fun and exactly what you want to see from a secondary creator who's able to attack rotating defenses and attack closeouts and get into those spaces that really makes scrambling defenses vulnerable. To wrap up, I want to take a look at how consistently Tre Johnson was able to kind of just spray the ball all over the floor this season, and the so many different variations in which he was able to do it. He did it working out of isolation, pick and roll, DHOs, running off screens in transition. Johnson constantly gets this tag of being a black hole with his on ball creation. And there's some validity to it because he isn't always making the right decision. He isn't always taking the best shots. But as we can see here, he always has his head up. It's rare that he gets really caught in situations where he's not seeing teammates and not seeing weak side defenders and rotations and all that kind of stuff. He's so consistent and so good when he wants to be about finding those open teammates, finding those gaps in the defense, finding and recognizing those defensive rotations and how he can immediately counter it and take advantage of that space that they just vacated. Unfortunately, the key there is that when he wants to be, it's kind of like a defender where these guys who should be good defenders, they get the classic billing of, man, when he locks in, he can be a really good defender. Tre Johnson is like that, but with his passing. Because as we can see here, a lot of these are really good looks that he's creating for his teammates that don't fall. Because to get an assist, the other guy has to make a shot. And you have to imagine that with NBA spacing and NBA level shooters, a lot of these go down. A lot of these result in more makes. And if they don't, because defenders are staying more at home, then Johnson has more room to operate in the interior to get to the rim or get to his spots in the mid-range and knock down cleaner jumpers. And another common theme here with all of these driving kicks is how frequently there are 4 to 5 defenders in the paint and how little space Johnson has to work with. So right off the bat here, I love that he's a willing screener off ball, sets that back screen, creates a little bit of chaos here among the defense, gets the handoff, sees his man is hung up on the screen, and hesitates just a little bit so the roller can drag his defender with him towards the rim, and then Johnson just drives. He attacks the space and makes a simple play here. This isn't rocket science, the read he makes here, but it's just an example of him making the simple play. He attacks downhill. John Mobley digs a little too aggressively out of strong side corner. Kids, don't help out a strong side corner. And obviously, depending on matchup, yada, yada, yada. But general rule, don't do it. Johnson secures through the dig, kicks out to the open teammate. Relatively clean look. Late contest by Mobley. Open 3. Again, this one, we see Tre Johnson yet again do a really good job of working that baseline. So right off the bat here, this is just an easy blow-by drive. Leaves his defender in the dust, attracts the help rotation, which means that the low man on the opposite block has to step up and take away Shedrick cutting. Johnson reads that, continues his drive, sees that the passing lane to Tremont Mark is wide open in the corner, changes the angle to guarantee. He lets his momentum take him out of bounds, improves that passing angle. Accuracy's a little bit off. Not ideal, but good enough for Mark to get a relatively clean look. Again, late contest, relatively clean look, can't knock it down. Again, Johnson does a really good job here working that baseline. He puts his defender on his back, draws that help side rotation. And as we saw in so many clips already, he's so comfortable around the baseline when he gets two defenders on him of identifying what's going on the weak side and just taking what the defense gives him. As the defense comes, Johnson stares down the corner shooter, which gets, I believe that's Chris Youngblood, to drop down a little bit instead of kicking to the corner here. As Youngblood drops, Tre Johnson counters, kicks out to Tremont Mark above the break. This should be a wide open look. NBA shooter, that's going up. Regardless, though, that kick still, extra pass swings it to the corner. Again, still another wide open look. Shot gets up, doesn't fall, but both of those would have been wide open looks. And it all stemmed from Tre driving baseline, being patient, using his vision to dissect what's going on the weak side, staying composed despite being outnumbered by defenders, and then kicking out. Again, like we saw in that opening clip, stays in position, gets the offensive rebound, head up yet again, all 5 defenders below the free throw line, kicks out to his open teammate, deep, late contest, but relatively open. NBA shooter that's probably going down. College guy leaves it short. Unfortunate. In this one, Tre lifts out of the paint here as his teammate drives. Tre lifts out of the paint and just lowers his shoulder and drives. He beats Blue Cane here off the bounce. Nothing overly complicated, but he has him on his back here. From this standpoint, Blue Cane is basically out of the play, which is why the help defender collapses so aggressively here. It's not necessarily his rotation to make, but since 13 here has his back to the play for most of it up until late, so as Johnson's driving, 13's back is to the play. I'm guessing that's what sparks 25 to collapse down here, but Tre reads it really quickly. Again, all 5 defenders near or around the paint, below the free throw line. Horrible spacing for the offense to work with. But Tre just makes that simple play. He quickly recognizes that help rotation, realizes where he's coming from, realizes that means his teammate is wide open. Unfortunately, shot goes up, wide open. Oh, that one does go down. So, simple read, creates a wide open look for his teammate, and he's able to catch it in rhythm and knock it down. On this one, we see him work that baseline yet again. Just a really simple rip through drive against Malik Dia. Drives baseline, help rotation comes. Shedrick cuts, which means yet again 4 to 5 defenders all in the paint. Johnson knows that means weak side shooters are going to be wide open. Head is up. He elevates, gets all 4 defenders around the rim to commit to either him or Shedrick. Improves his release angle to guarantee that pass gets over. Accuracy's off a little bit. That's something he's really going to have to work on because he's sending his teammate over. Teammate could do a little better job here of sinking into the corner, maybe making that passing angle for Johnson a little easier, but that's a relatively easy passing angle that Johnson has to be more accurate with going forward. Takes him off his shooting spot a little bit, but that's wide open. Unfortunately, doesn't fall. Now we see a little bit more dancing, a little bit more flair to try and beat Felix Okpara off the bounce here. Okpara is a really good athlete, really good rim protector. That's not where you want him defending. A little crossover. Doesn't quite explode out of it like we saw in some previous clips, but we see the handle, we see the crispness of it, and how just with his speed, he does eventually turn the corner on Okpara, draws that secondary rotation. Chaz Lanier here has to stay glued to Shedrick. Johnson lets his momentum take him out of bounds yet again, works that baseline, improves the passing angle, kicks it out to Tremont Mark, late contest, shot doesn't fall. I love this one, and it's a really fun example of how Tre can just really counter that scramble defenses and defensive rotations. So as the ball swings out to him, Ole Miss is frantically trying to get out. There's no communication here, and Johnson does a really good job of recognizing it. He recognizes how aggressively the threat of him taking an open three pulls defenders towards him, and that they're not communicating at all, and that his teammate is going to be wide open. Little shot fake gets this defender to commit fully and draws this defender in the middle that extra step. He's able to then change location, delivers a fastball away from the collapsing number 5 here to a spot where only his teammate can get it. It's a little clumsy on the catch and the finish. Eventually goes down. But that's a really fun little use of subtle fakes and quick processing speed to recognize where there's the only open pocket on the floor. Now again, in more of that off-ball roll, simple reads. Not all of these have to be rocket science, but when we're talking about a guy as a ball stopper in a black hole, recognizing him doing the little things and really capitalizing on that shooting gravity is important, because that's a lot of where Tre Johnson's playmaking opportunities come from. So he just runs off this cross screen by Kaluma, and his defender goes over. Alex Caravan fully commits to almost a switch here. On the catch, Johnson recognizes it. He knows Diarra is on his back. He knows Caravan's right here, which means Kaluma is going to be wide open on the pop. Changes release angle to make sure he gets it over his recovering defender. Caravan's out of the play. He's on the other side of the court. Kaluma has all the time in the world. Wide open look. Knocks it down. Simple reads go a long way. They're not always the sexiest, but they can be the most impactful. On this one, Tre, again, it's that working that baseline, attacking closeouts, beating defenders to the spot, and then keeping his head up and seeing the entire floor, even when he's in traffic. He might get away with a little bit of a travel here, but no whistle, no foul, or no infraction. Drives baseline, skips around the defender, absorbs the contact. One defender on the floor, 4 others either in the paint or below the free throw line. Johnson's head is up. He sees that 2 defenders are on him right here. 10 would be a little tricky to get to, but Tremont Mark is wide open above the break. Changes that release angle, kicks it out. Perfect location. Wide open 3. Money. This time in more of that primary creator role. Again, not rocket science, but subtle little things in his creation here to create the wide open look. They're going to run a little extended horn set here. Johnson dribbles off to the right. Blue Cane goes over. Roller's defender is really shading up high and committing to Tre pretty aggressively here. And that means that Kaluma's defender is going to have to tag the roller since Santos Cyril is out of the play here. Johnson recognizes this. He sees that he's yet again attracted to defenders and that the roller is dragging the third defender with him, which means the third member of the extended horn set is going to be wide open above the break here. Johnson does a really good job of dragging out and kind of penetrating and keeping and continuing to take this space afforded to him. As he glances back, he sees that Kaluma's man is now trying to fight back over to Kaluma to not give up that pick and pop opportunity. So instead, Johnson continues to drive, takes up that space that Cyril is not prohibiting him. Cyril is just continuing to drop back and let Johnson attack downhill. Now that this defender has recovered to Kaluma, the roller's continued his roll. He's done a really good job of eating up that space, rim running, and Johnson still has both these 2 primary defenders, which means the weak side defender, who should be, in the passing lane of this corner shooter, now has to collapse down to the roller. Johnson recognizes this, steps through, kicks out, right on the money, perfect pass through traffic, sets up the wide open look, doesn't fall. Here again, primary creation role, dribbles off the screen, gets both defenders to commit yet again. and does a really good job of just instinctually knowing where his teammate's going to be. As he comes off the screen, Shedrick rolls hard, and Johnson knows that the drop or that Shedrick's defender is blitzing him, and Johnson's drawing him out, which is going to imbalance the floor because these weak side defenders are going to have this weak side defender specifically is going to have to rotate up into the middle of the floor to take away the Shedrick roll, since both of these strong side defenders have men in the corner here and they can't just leave corner shooters wide open. Once Johnson peeks around Okpara here and sees this weak side defender cheat up towards Shedrick, he knows that his teammate is lifting out of the corner here and is going to be open. Really good job of using that high hook pass live dribble release point to get it over the defender, not waste any time giving that weak side defender an extra step to recover, delivers it, sets his teammate up. Decent contest by the defender, rough shot, but the processing speed, the recognition of where the defense is exactly what you want to see from Tre here. Again, we see this horn set, and last time we know what happens. So last time, as Tre came off this screen, the drop defender just kept dropping and Tre kept taking up that space. That doesn't happen so much this time. This time the drop defender plays a little more at the level. So as the roller dives down towards the lane, Kaluma's defender is yet again going to go with him for most of the way. As he sinks down, once he gets below the free throw line here, Tre does a really good job of dragging this dribble out. So right here, he could kill his dribble and either deliver a pocket pass, but that would get intercepted or disrupted by the help defender here. He could kick it out to Kaluma, but Kaluma's too deep, and that's plenty of time for the defender to recover to him, or he gets stuck in a trap here. Instead, what he does a really good job of is just extending it for just that extra dribble here. So right here, instead of killing it, takes that one extra dribble. That move here draws his defender down, draws the help defender all the way down below the free throw line, draws this defender further down, and gives Kaluma even more space to step into a three, forces the recovery distance for Kaluma's defender to be that much further. Kaluma gets a really clean look off, knocks it down because of that subtle little craft of Johnson dragging out that dribble just an extra step or two. Primary pick and roll. Again, simple stuff. Little kind of double drag action here. Shedrick sets the initial screen. Kaluma ghosts the second one. No communication by the defense. Shedrick dives down. His defender's here. Kaluma's defender went with the switch instead. No one communicated it. Johnson quickly recognizes it, kicks it back. Relatively clean look. Doesn't fall. And then finally, a little dance. Collapses the defense. 5 defenders below the free throw line. Yet again, kicks back. Really fun job here. Early offense, pushing. Again, Johnson doing a really good job of capitalizing on imbalanced and unset defenses. Pushes, crossover, little brush screen here is enough to create that driving space for Johnson to attack down into. Weak side defender has to collapse down onto Shedrick, but he knows his man is in the corner. Johnson elevates, stares down the corner shooter, which sends number 1 here back towards the corner instead of back up above the break. This defender is all the way in recovery mode. Fears is in recovery mode. No one is thinking about the trailing shooter here. Johnson contorts his body, kicks back against his momentum, wide open look, doesn't fall. So throughout these, Johnson does a really good job of keeping his dribble alive, reading that weak side, drawing multiple defenders, and using little craft, like stringing his defender along for an extra step or two to make that distance for help defenders to rotate and recover that much greater. It's exactly the type of stuff that you want to see from a shooting guard who's attacking closeouts, running the second side pick and roll, running off of handoffs, and finding ways to counter rotating and scrambling defenses. So, where does that leave us? I hope that what this showed was that Tre Johnson has so much more passing in his game than typical narratives and his raw assist numbers may suggest. There's a lot that goes into playmaking and passing ability than just raw assist numbers. Tre Johnson isn't a primary playmaker. If he's your primary playmaker or primary decision maker, you're probably going to be in trouble, unfortunately. Maybe one day he has a Devin Booker-esque type of development where he's kind of thrown into the fire and forced to develop those skills so much faster than maybe is healthy. But he's a lot farther along in that realm than a lot of people try to make him out to be. So is Tre Johnson a point guard? Is he your primary decision maker? No. Could he one day be? Maybe, but I'd rather he's not. Instead, as that second side creator, as that off ball creator, someone who can counter rotating defenses, find open pockets, do the little things, use his scoring gravity to create for others. And once defenses have to stay home on shooters because he's been creating for others, then he's able to get to his own shots a little more effectively and really fill up the scoring column that way. I'd be surprised if Johnson ever ends up being a 6, 7, 8 assists per game type of guy. But 3, 4, 5 at his peak, I think that's incredibly realistic. As he continues to age and mature and his game continues to develop, don't think of Tre Johnson as this black hole of a scorer. There's so much more playmaking capabilities, desire, and results that he has in his game. Tre Johnson is so much more than a scorer.